everybody, and welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we take a look at the four pillars of modern misery: anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I'm Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
Joe. One thing we both like is when people fight in a show, or maybe a comic book, when there's like punching. That kicks ass, right?
Yeah, it's really stupid when like art has attempts to show conflict that don't involve two people fighting. Like, what is that?
I mean, like, I've heard there are other genres of media that just like never have a fight in them. Go to hell. Go to super hell and die there. That's my opinion.
And it's not that like we want violence. What we need is the first guy to say, I believe X, and then the other guy says, actually, I believe Y. Let us fight. That way I can follow kind of like what's going on.
Also, we do want violence. You were wrong about that. Well, I bring this up, Joe, because we have a special guest who knows about fighting. Listener, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I met this person, and I learned that they do fighting. I was like, the most interesting person I've ever met. Incredible. So enough talk. Let's introduce our special guest, Stephanie. Come out from the shadows and introduce yourself.
Why, hello. My name is Stephanie Mattos. I'm an actor and a stage director and a fight director and a stunt coordinator in the Chicagoland area. Hi.
We have so many annoying questions. It's gonna be nuts. A lot of mine are gonna be sword related.
When you have guests, we open up this little document that we all share. We can put in topics, things we want to discuss on the show. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to make sure like, would this be a good segment? Just any idea is fine. It's just a big menu of fun stuff to choose from. And usually they're like broad topics. In this one, it's like in Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla keeps missing with his breath. That made me upset. How would you, a fight choreographer, fix that problem?
Oh, God. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I was thinking really hard. You want me to answer that now? Because I can answer it now.
I mean, maybe.
Okay. Okay. So I'm thinking of Godzilla versus Kong, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Godzilla has a lot of. I don't want to say issues because Godzilla's not a bad fighter. Okay. Godzilla's a big brawly boy. Kong is also a big brawly boy, but Kong, as we all know, because I'm assuming that we've all played Super Smash Brothers here, is that Kong's got mad reach. And, Godzilla, Meet the Robinsons, big head, little arms, right?
He's got a big fucking tail. That's the thing. He never uses his fucking tail.
He never uses his tail, which is actually his biggest drawback. He should use his tail more often than not because his tail is practically a whip. And he could use that a lot more often than he usually does in a lot of Godzilla movies. The flame thing is actually a really slow attack. Like, consider it like a heavy. He should really only use that for long-range targets if he needs to clear his space, Because the thing is that it's a dragon, right? Godzilla's technically a dragon. He has to take all that time to summon up all of that energy to do a fire blast, whether it's a blast or a ball. He still has to pretty much just, like you do in musical theater, breathe out your butthole and like bring it all the way up. You do. That vocal teachers, I used to do musical theater. I'm a soprano. But anyway, you have to like breathe really down low in your diaphragm in order to summon up all of that energy and all that heat, right? And so Kong can clock that forever away, and by then Kong can close the gap, and because it's such a it's usually a straight like line of fire, right? It's only gonna go in one direction unless he like kind of goes nuts and like I just finished Avatar: Last Airbender, like Azula cries about it and just like makes big arcs of fire in the air. So he can easily get under that and just like give him like one good sticky to the throat, and like he doesn't, he's kind of useless there. So that's why it makes me mad too.
Well, okay, I'm with you, and I agree that it does have a long wind-up, but there are sequences in the film where Godzilla is at a distance and has enough time to fucking charge up the big beam without King Kong coming and getting him in the meantime. And King Kong is just like, my strategy is I'm going to run to the side, and Godzilla's like, I have no solution for that. And it's like, literally, it's a big beam coming out of your head. All you have to do is look at at the fucking monkey?
Yeah, like-
Are you
like-
telling me that King Kong is outrunning Godzilla's ability to turn his head to the side?
That is one thing that I'm very confused about. How many neck bones, therefore, does Godzilla have? Like, that's the question. How much does he have to turn his whole body in order to turn his head, or can he just whip his head left to right? Because that's an evolutionary thing. How long is this lizard's spine? Where does his spine stop and his skull start? Because if he does have limited mobility in his neck, he probably can't do, like what God, who is that Namby Pants on the X-Men who likes Jean Grey? Cyclops. Like, he can't be like Cyclops where he just whips his head around and, like, just laser beams all over the place. If he's got to completely rotate 180 degrees, he might be at a disadvantage there,
We don't know what the anatomy of, like, maybe he can turn his head by breathing fire because he'll die. Like, it'll, like, do a backdraft or something we don't understand.
Maybe.
And even, okay, well, if that's the case, he shouldn't be using that, just throwing that move out. Like, this was something that I posted as a joke, but, like, the Godzilla player was using a ton of unsafe moves with really long cooldowns, just throwing them out with no hit confirms. When his fucking tail whip, that's his down tilt. You talked about Smash Brothers. Mewtwo's down tilt where he whips his tail, that's what Godzilla should be doing constantly.
He should be spamming it.
He should be, especially because he doesn't have a lot of reach with his arms. And he can't really support himself with them. Like, he is, if I recall correctly, because I didn't see Godzilla vs. Kong, but I have seen many a Godzilla movie, he doesn't have necessarily really long arms. So it's not like he can really use those for much of anything. So his tail, if he has the ability, because he's got big feet, so he could always absolutely put his weight on the balls of his feet and use his tail more as, like, his actual weapon, more often than anything. But he uses it almost exclusively for balance and balance only. Again, the question... This spine of this lizard, internet, I demand the anatomy of Godzilla. Post haste. I demand it.
So, listener, I think this sort of gives you a glimpse in that when you ask Stephanie about a fight, you're going to hear some awesome shit that makes you hoot. And that's what this episode's going to be about mostly.
Can I ask one question about the Godzilla Kong movie, and then we can move off of it?
Yes.
Do you think King Kong should have been smaller? I think he should have been a little smaller. I think, like, the fact that he could maybe, like, climb Godzilla could have been an interesting sort of thing. I'm not talking about he's tiny. I'm just saying there should be a size difference.
Wait a minute. Okay, again, I haven't seen the movie. He's not small. I've really always thought that King Kong was smaller than Godzilla.
I mean, they scaled him up for this purpose. They made him, like legitimately they're the same height. Joe, are you thinking of, like, Smash Brothers, like Mewtwo versus Pikachu height difference?
Yes. I'm also imagining a situation where there's maybe more grappling, and I think Kong would be benefited. I think they should have, like, tried to drown each other in the Tokyo Harbor. That would have been really cool.
That would have been dope. Because I'm trying to think of old, like, King Kong movies, or just even the most recent, the one with Jack Black or whatever. Like, he's never been so big that he was taller than the Empire State Building. That was the whole jazz, right? Like, he was able to, like, hang off of the state building and, like, throw a hissy fit. Like, that's the thing. So clearly he's not nearly as big as Godzilla, and that actually would have given him a humongous tactical advantage, because Godzilla has clearly, as we have established, no mobility. Like, virtually none. If he could essentially
movement.
Like, yeah, he's got some I don't know, can I curse on here?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
What?
He's got some bullshit ass movement. So it's like, if he got on Godzilla's back, Godzilla would have been fucked. Absolutely fucked. Like, they did it because they wanted to have cool grappling scenes with the people running underneath and be like, Godzilla! And
there wasn't even cool grappling scenes. That's the thing. Like, okay, people said so many good things about the Godzilla vs. Kong movie, and here's my honest opinion. I think that the people who designed the fights were like, we don't need to put any effort into it because the fact that it's two monsters is going to make people like it automatically.
Yes.
And guess what? They were fucking right, except for me. I thought it was lazy and they weren't fighting good.
If you're going to make King Kong the same size as Godzilla, then, like, you can have grappling if you want, but then you really should absolutely just be, like, utilizing the fact that he's a fucking gorilla. Like, this is a quick segue, but my mom has actually, as a matter of fact, been body slammed by one. So, like,
what?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? Like a gorilla
Yeah,
or a Godzilla?
no, by gorilla, by a silverback, by a teenage silverback male gorilla. They don't like peaches, by the way. Yeah, my mom's crazy. My mom's not crazy. I mean, she is, but in a good matronly way. My mom's a badass.
Is this in a professional capacity?
Yes.
Does she work with? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That squares the circle, I think.
Yeah. She was working with him professionally when she was like in her mid-20s, and like he body slammed her into a wall. Anyway, these boys are brawlers. Like, gorillas don't fuck around. Like, if he's the same size as Godzilla and he did not try to at least pick up Godzilla or throw Godzilla, what were they doing? I have to watch this movie.
They
and
just
possibly get
punching.
mad.
Just kind of
Oh,
like punching
no!
and like headlocking.
He's got 4 hands. Do you know how much you can do with 4 fucking opposable thumbs? You can do so much with 4 fucking opposable thumbs.
Well, this is part of the downside of fucking scaling Kong up. In part of scaling him up to be Godzilla size, they made him fully bipedal, so he has like feet, and his knuckles don't touch the ground.
Wait.
He's
That's just
like
a big guy.
it sucks.
They
shit.
gave King Kong people feet?
I don't think it's exactly people feet. I don't really recall. I didn't look much at the feet, but they're not like hands. It's not like
I am
thumbs on the
unreasonably, irrationally angry at that because it could have been so cool. And like, no, I'm so upset. God damn it!
If he has people feet, that's just a Yeti.
Yes, that's the abominable snowman.
Oh fuck! They made him Yeti. He made him tomorrow.
It's Godzilla versus Yeti.
Or Ohio Grassman.
Not an Appalachian cryptid. I'm pissed. How dare?
Stephanie, I gotta ask you this big question. We've been having fun, shooting debris, as it were. Everyone's on board with this episode. They say, "Who is this guest?" Now they're like, "This guest owns." This is now the time it begins. You will be asked the question. Joe, do you wish to do it?
Sure. Let's see if I can do it. Stephanie,
Yes.
are you an anime sicko?
Oh. Yes, absolutely. I'm absolutely an anime sicko. I have been this kind of nerd since like the dawn of time. Like, truly. I have been called an enigma since I was 6.
An enigma?
An enigma. My father looked at me one day and said, "I don't know what to do with you." In like this terrified, confused, and maybe disappointed kind of way when I was like 9. So it's like, I've been like this my entire life. I remember when you didn't call us weebs. I remember when we were in otaku, and we were proud of it. Okay? We were proud. Yes, I can sing the real folk blues in Japanese. That's the only way I know how to sing it.
Oh God.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Did your
That's
father
a step beyond?
Did your father not know what to do with you because you, at the age of 9, began the path of the blade?
Kind of, yes. I would definitely
Okay.
threaten my brother with a flathead screwdriver occasionally. Sorry,
I
Sean.
just love the idea. See, I have very little desire to ever become a father, but the upside would be just as soon as I see my child like enjoy a cartoon, to just fucking freak out and be like, I don't know what to do. Oh god, oh god, enjoying a cartoon. No one told me this would happen.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely like stay up late because, you know, for us, we didn't if it wasn't Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z, you had to stay up late for like the other anime, you know, like even Big O, because like Big O was on Adult Swim, which was weird. Big O should have been on Adult Swim. It didn't deserve it. But I mean, it was good, but like it was not as like intense as like Outlaw Star, which by the way did not age well. Cowboy Bebop barely aged well.
I didn't watch Big O because the main guy's eyebrows really upset me.
They were weird, but like it prepped me for Fooly Cooly. So by the time I got to Fooly Cooly, I was okay with weird eyebrows. I was slightly jealous of not having sometimes such as cool eyebrows as some other characters. I was that kid when people were like, are you Team Sailor Moon or are you Team Dragon Ball Z? And I'm like, I'm Team Gundam Wing. I am. You give me a robot and I'm down. Like, I'll try anything if you put a robot in it. I really will. I am big Team Gundam Wing. I used to write fan fiction in middle school, and I would put my friends in it, and then at lunch, I would read it to my friends.
This is huge, Sicko. Like, I feel like I feel like I should be answering no to like, oh, I'm not.
Yeah, do you want to do the show instead of Tom?
I mean, yeah, sure. I don't know. I can always tap in. Just let me know.
Yeah, if I ever need a break.
Yeah, like if you ever need to go on vacation, but it's gonna mess with the schedule. I mean, sure. I mean, just give me a call. I guess. Sure, that's fine.
So, Stephanie, one thing that I want to know from your expert perspective, especially as I am a connoisseur of people on the stage and screen and page punching each other, seems like the hardest thing to do is set up a fight. I mean, like when you set up any fight, one of them's going to lose. And
yes, often, yes. Somebody has to lose.
How do you set up the loser, the person who's booked to lose? They just are, by definition, not going to be able to like pull off a special move that wins the fight. They're not going to be able to dominate the other guy. They're not going to be able to do something devastating and final because they lose. We know that. So how do you make them still be intimidating and scary?
Okay.
When they're eventually gonna fuck up.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's actually the hardest part of a fight is acting the fight. It's really tough, and that's actually I started out. I have a degree in acting specifically. There are some schools with theater programs that you can get actual like just straight up degrees in stage combat.
Wow.
My theater department at my school did not offer that. It was just acting. And I'm not saying that I'm great, but I am saying I'm pretty damn good as an actor. And I realized I wasn't feeling challenged enough in a lot of roles. And that's kind of when I got into stage combat, because it's really hard to portray threat when there's like no threat at all. And that's actually one of the hardest parts of fights is really conveying that threat to the audience without actively harming your actor. So I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible, not get too into teacher mode, but I did just adjust my glasses. So, but like a big thing is that you have to establish that threat physically, but you also have to establish it emotionally with your actors without like having them like psychologically feel like they are in danger. Like the big thing is like a big thing that I live by as a fight director and a stunt coordinator is that like no artist should ever go through trauma in order to do art. So a big thing, especially for we call them, well, what do you call them? I always get the word terms wrong, but essentially you got the assailant and you got the victim. Yeah. And the big thing in fights, honestly, the biggest secret that I can ever give you is that the person who loses is the one who has the most control over the fight. Because they're the one getting hurt, right? They're the one that's going to have to do the fall or, get stabbed or just generally lose. Even if they don't die, they still have to lose. And so they have to feel safe in this fight. Even if they start out not losing, if they have to lose eventually, they have to feel safe in this fight. And often in many fights, good fights, you can never tell who's ever going to lose, right? Because in every part of that fight, fights are often broken up into phrases. The loser and the winner of a phrase isn't always the same person. You have one person that will push the offensive, and then one person who will exploit the other person's weakness, and then one person who will get caught off on the back foot, and then they'll lose, right? So when I first started fighting, I refused to lose my fights. I think a lot of that was because I was a black girl and I was one of the only like black stage combatants in my department. So I was like, fuck you, I'm never losing a fucking fight. I'm beating all you white people's asses. Like, fuck you. You're going to know what it feels like. This is 400 years of revenge. Like, that's probably how I felt. But it was also because I was left-handed. And in certain weapon fights, that's a pain in the ass. Specifically with swords, we can get into that later. It's a big old pain in the ass with certain types of weapons that I'm left-handed. Which is always fun. I love doing that in classes. I'll hold my weapons in the right hand and when they say on guard, I put it into my left and I drop into a stance, and like my opponents are always like, "Oh god damn it," because my targets are always close to them. But anyway,
that's Princess Bride in real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You made it real.
Yes, pretty much. I'm like, aha! But there are people who are ambidextrous, and that's never fun for me either. But anyway, so the big thing about that is that you have to establish threat, and you have to teach your actors that acting that threat is very, very important. And that's like physical tension, like them holding tension in their bodies in safe ways, being able to release that in safe ways. making sure that you're the person who's always playing the victim in that part of the fight always feels safe doing it. You always make them do things that they know that they can do, because they have to be able to replicate it. Even if it's like a movie, they're not going to do that fight just once. I did a feature where my 2 actors were boxers, and I think they did that fight like 7 times before, like, just to film it, because the director of photography is going to film it in like 5 different, from 5 different angles, So they have to be able to replicate it. So the biggest thing, I guess, is that victim has to do all of this acting to help sell to the audience, to transmit to the audience, I am in danger, And it's a fine line between like Laurence Olivier hamming it up and like actually like having people be worried for you. But it's a really big challenge. It's really hard to sell a fight, and a lot of that work is on the victim. It's a lot of like making sure your targets are right. It's a lot of making sure you react to your targets correctly. Like, we've all seen the gag where like somebody slaps somebody like from the left to the right, and they actually turn their head from the right to the left, and they're like, oh, and like the timing is all off and all that stuff. It's a lot of that work. It's a lot of training people to not anticipate cues. It's a lot of training people, especially for stage work. It's a lot of them understanding what sounds sound like a sound that you make when you get hit in the face is a different sound from when you're punched in the stomach. And so it's making sure that you don't sound like you got the wind knocked out of you when somebody headbutts you, because that's not necessarily the case. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of training to sell a fight when you're on the losing end. You do a lot more work in some ways. But I mean, that doesn't mean that the person who's running around like winning doesn't have to do any work, because like they have to also really be a good partner. Not a nice partner, but a good partner. And they have to be aware of, their targets. They have to be correct with their timing. They have to know their choreography in and out. They have to you have to establish a language between you and your fight partner in order to make sure that if something happens, like, oh my God, I was doing my certifications for quarterstaff, and my partner.
We'll get into that later.
But I was doing my
I'm hearing that there's a school.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh yeah, there's like there were 2 in the city, now there's 1. But I was doing my certifications for quarterstaff, and my fight partner recognized that my brain just like blue screen for like half a second, but she was in the middle of a move and she couldn't stop, and I had a very real reaction. And thankfully, because by then it was like muscle memory, my body reacted the way it did, but my brain caught up like half a second later, and like I legitimately screamed, and she was like, you good? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, I caught the stick, my pelvis is intact, we're fine. And that was her. She recognized that, she saw me kind of like, and that was unspoken, right? Like that was like completely nonverbal, but she saw my eyes kind of glaze over for half a second, and she clocked that and pulled back for a half beat. And then we stopped and we just held that position for a minute, because it was the end of a fight phrase, so we were able to move on from there. But she held it, and like under her breath, she's like, you good? I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, we kept going, but it was very much like, you have to be in tune with your partner too, because you can't push through a fight, because what you don't want to do, because your body is still reacting as if it is a real fight. Your brain is saying, this isn't a real fight. I have trust in my partner that they will not actually hurt me. The way that this is set up, the way that this fight is set up, is that everything is like 6 inches to the left or the right or up or down, so they're never going to actually hit anything vital. I'm not in real danger. Your brain knows that, but your body doesn't. And so you have to always remember that if you as the person who's the assailant is being a bad partner, your targets are bad. You're going too fast. You're not helping set the pace of the fight with your partner. You can unintentionally traumatize your partner, because their body will still react in that fight or trying. Essentially, we are towing the really thin line between work and fight or flight mode all of the time. And you really need to make sure you don't accidentally trigger your partner for that. That's not saying that every fighter is like very much like, oh gosh, we're just these fragile people. But it's very much like, especially when you're working with stuntmen and stunt women who generally come through stunts the actual like competitive martial art way or the gymnastics way. They are hardwired to actually kill you. Like, a lot of these people can actually kill you. So like, you don't want to accidentally make their body truly collapse your trachea. So you have to like do your best to like not put yourself or your partner in a situation where they have to literally defend themselves. That's really all that is.
So one a sort of example. I don't know if you've seen the Raid 2.
Yeah, that's what my notes had. Good. You can just do it.
The example that I always think of that I'm just like, how were these decisions made? Is the very final fight of the Raid 2 where our main guy Rama is fighting the guy who has like curved blades. That fight is so good. It's so visceral and exciting and exhilarating. And the guy with the curved blades looks so scary. He's such a formidable force. You really it really comes over. But like the way that Rama ends up winning is he drops one of the curved blades, he picks it up, and then he cuts the guy and in the throat, and he dies. And it's just like, well, okay, I guess he just like had to win at some point. And like that's to me like the real paradox, because it's so narratively intoxicating and tempting to come up with like just the most destructive badass villain, like, oh, he's the best at fighting and he's so vicious, and like, oh, that's so cool, I want to put that in. But then like your guy has to beat him, and it's just like, oh fuck. Well, at the end he just cuts his throat. That's it. Like, what? How do you know how to solve that problem, or is that just sort of one of the unsolvable problems of drama?
It is and it isn't. It isn't one of the unsolvable problems of drama. Like, when I approach a fight, when somebody comes up to me and says, "I want to fight," and I'm like, groovy, moxie, and I'm just like, okay, well, what's the context? What's the context of a fight? Like, it's really hard. My poor boyfriend's gonna hear this, and I'm not gonna go. I can feel him rolling his eyes in the future right now. The caffeine's kicked in, so now I can like see outside of time. But like, God, Mortal Kombat. So many of those fights were unnecessary. But anyhow, oh God, Mortal Kombat.
The idea of a fight not being necessary seems rude to me.
Yes, and sometimes there are lots of unnecessary fights and things that just have fighting as the precedent of like the movie or the show or the story or whatever. So when I'm hired to do a job and I'm like, hey, what's the context? Give me the whole script. I need to know how we get here, because that informs how somebody fights somebody else. Because most of the time, more often than not, even if a person is somebody like a gunslinger, or they're like this wayward assassin, or whatever, fighting is always the last resort. Fighting should never be the first. It's usually never the first. Even if somebody is just a fighter and they are just the person who comes out swinging, and they seem to be hot-headed and they pop off all the time. There's always got to be a narrative reason or a character reason as to why they are that way. So it is always really disheartening when it is like, you've got this big scary guy, and it's like this huge showdown, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna end this fight as efficiently as possible. I could have done this exactly 3 minutes ago, but I didn't. That's a big pain in the ass. And the thing is that like in those situations, and those are the fights that I hate the most, because what they did is that they didn't justify all of the flourishy shit before that moment, right? They don't justify all of the dodging and the rolling and the cool shit and the people clearly not putting their arms up. God, I had to do a show about boxing. It was the same thing I was talking about shooting that feature. It was boxing, and like now I can't unsee it every time people don't just drop directly back into defensive stances after fights. I'm like, what is wrong with you? God, cover your targets. Like, it drives me crazy.
The first Rocky is so fucking funny because they never put their hands up. They just...
Yeah, Rocky just has his arms straight down, and he's getting punched in the face, and he's like, this sucks.
You
If only
don't have
it was
to
possible
eat
to
fists.
avoid
You
this.
never have to eat fists. Put your fucking hands up. That drives me batshit. That drives me batshit, because most of the time your general just getting ready to fight stance is a defensive stance. It might not be complete defense because it allows mobility or whatever you need for the moment, but it's always a neutral stance that allows you to drop into a defensive stance or an offensive stance depending on the situation. And oh my God, if you're getting your ass kicked, you jump back up and you get into a defensive stance, you can reassess your situation. It's not hard. God, sorry.
In Rocky, they put their hands down, and also an entire stadium of people were like, I don't think either of these guys know how to fight, but that's great.
It drives me crazy. So, like, yeah, it's when somebody who is a big baddie, and they are taken down in what seems like the most efficient way possible, it is very, very underwhelming, because you're like, what was that like 2 minutes for? What was all of that before that for? If all you could have done was grab his fucking hand scythe, jump up his arm, run up it like a squirrel, and then slit his throat, what was the point? This could have been done. this could have been done, because most very good fighters don't waste time. This is why I said, like, I am a big fan of an efficient fight. Because you don't have the energy to sustain a fight as long as some fights are. You really don't.
Yeah.
Even if you are really, really good at fighting, even if you are really, like, literally, if you are even the Avatar, you can only hold that state for so fucking long before you get tired. You're still a mortal human being. Even if you are immortal, you still have limits. And, like, you get tired. Your bones get tired. Getting walloped on is exhausting. It is. And so, like, God, I've got like a 2-minute limit on fights. Like, I really do. I'm like, they're like, we just want that. I'm like, I'm reading this. How long does this fight have to be? They're like, oh, like 3 minutes. I was like, oh, God, okay. And they're like, you can't make it 3 minutes. I was like, I can, but that's exhausting. There's going to be a lot of breaks in this 3 minutes. Like, you know, like, they're going to break off for a little bit there. Like, yeah, have you never fought anything for 3 minutes? You clearly are an only child. You know, like, it's just like, Jesus, you clearly never had pets.
I said this off mic, but I'm going to say it again. I recently watched the director's extended cut of Kingdom of Heaven, the big fucking 2005 movie about dudes in Jerusalem fucking around. It's really good, but it has the efficient fight as sort of a main like theme of its action. Like, the main guy gets taught by his mentor like how to sword fight, and well, when you're seeing like a big epic action movie in the past, you're expecting to see a certain type of sword fight. But he's actually taught like the way that you would fight with a broadsword, which is hold the broadsword directly above your head, pointing up. Yep. Look like a true idiot, like you don't know what you're doing, like you're an ape going ook ook. And then when a guy comes at you going rah, you simply drop the sword and it cuts him in half. Yes. And it's like, okay. Yes. And he does that a lot in the movie.
Yes, because that's... Honestly, if your sword is longer than 3 feet, that's the easiest way for you to handle it. It's a heavy baby. It's very, very heavy. They're heavy. You can get inside somebody's line with a broadsword, but they're big boys and they're unyieldy, and you need both hands. Like, they're not meant to be fast. They're meant to cut through a lot of people very quickly. That's why they have 2 edges. But, like, we can still tell a story. It doesn't have to be a 5-minute long fight. Like, we can. Like, that's when, like, all the things of, like, establishing threat. That's when all the things of, like, the types of moves you pick. That's when all of that comes into play. And, like, you can strike a balance between, like, an efficient fight and a storytelling fight. You want your fight to also... You want your fight to fit within the narrative. You do. Like, a fight must fit within the narrative. But at the same time, there needs to be... Like, the story has to progress within the fight itself. Like, you can't just have these two people like fighting for a while, and then like this, like the story pauses, then it resumes after the fight, right? Or like that, like those moments, like the win has to be earned. Like, that's a big thing. The win has to be earned. Going back to Scythe Squirrel here, like the win has to be earned. If he did all this bluffing for 2.5 minutes, and then all he managed to do was get his hands on this thing, and there wasn't this desperate attempt, like we don't see this moment of him going, oh shit, he's half disarmed, I can use this against him, you know, and like we see his gears turning, you know, white woman math.gif. Like, we don't see him do that, you know, but he just does.
Manga is so good at that. It's the best medium if you want that.
Exactly, because like, and I really think that we need to borrow that a little bit more sometimes in Western media, because like, you know, he's in this position where it's like, okay, this is literally my Hail Mary. Like, we've got to see him process that this is my Hail Mary. This is the last thing. And no, it can't be the crane kick from the Karate Kid, you know? But, like, it's, like, because we need more than that now. Like, in 1994, it was fine. But, like, this is 2021 now. We need more than that. So, like...
So, I don't know much about fighting. For me, if someone was going to do the crane kick to me, I would simply run to the side. Is that,
yes.
would that do it?
Yes, it would.
I would actually just crane kick first.
I mean, honestly, the thing that I would do is either A, run to the side and punch them in their kidney. B, step outside of the line of the foot, because the crane kick is directly in front of them. So just either step to the left or the right, and punch them in that joint between their leg and their pelvis. That just hurts. It just hurts.
That would do
more
it.
Than anything. It just hurts. It really does. And if you hit hard enough, you cramp that leg, which is kind of great. But I hit him there, or truly, like you said, like, because of the way that like, I'm thinking of the Karate Kid specifically, because there are other people who are grounded through that foot, and you couldn't just knock them off of balance. That's why it's actually a very difficult move. But stepping outside of that line and exploiting the fact that they're open is really all I do. So it's probably just punching them in the kidney or whatever, because it's going to take them half of a second to, like, get out of that. Like, and I've got other friends who do this, like, who have done this, like, competitively, and they'd be like, yeah, you don't use that ever. Because, like, it's slow. And it's like, yes, the point is to win the fight. Like, you know, the point is to win. The point is to not die. Most fights, you don't want to die. That's generally what happens in fights, right? Like,
Yeah.
half of the time in a fight, somebody's going to walk away from it and somebody isn't going to. Whether or not they're alive is completely up to, like, the situation. So, like, the situation, if there are any weapons, and the ability of the fighters. You know, because, like, a trailer park fight, people are probably going to walk away from it, but somebody's probably going to lose, like, you know, a tuft of hair or two, you know, which I have choreographed, which was very fun.
Yeah, how do you choreograph a messy, like, brawl that's supposed to, like, demonstrate sloppiness, but also not suck to look at?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
because I feel like a real messy brawl is going to be on the ground instantly,
Yes.
and you're not going to be able to see anything.
Yes. Yes. Oh my god. So first of all, I choreographed them with relish and aplomb and an assistant to keep me on time, because I will lose my fucking mind and I'll have way too many ideas. And I'm like, what about this? What do we do this? Oh my god. Oh my god. And they're like, hey, stop it. I'm like, oh, that's right. I have to focus. Like, I lose my fucking mind. I love them. So I did this cat fight. I hate that term, but that's truly what it was. It was this fight between two women in this musical called the Trailer Park Musical, an American trailer park musical. Doesn't matter. The whole point is that one girl was confronting an agoraphobic at her trailer, in the trailer park, and she drags her from the front of the trailer to the back of the trailer by her hair. Those poor girls. They do so much core work. But essentially, this is what I like to call a found object fight. Jackie Chan uses them all the time, and it's a very good time.
Yeah.
I love found object fights. So essentially, what you do is, yes, you always, absolutely, most people don't know how to fight. Yes, like, and I mean this, like, most people are not trained to fight. I'm not saying that somebody can't brawl around and beat your ass, but, like, nobody ever fucking levels up past the schoolyard. Nobody does. Very few people do. And you don't fuck with those people, and those people don't get in fights, because they know that the entire point of you learning how to fight is to never get into one. So, people who haul off and want to, like, throw a punch at a bar, first of all, they usually are terrible punchers. But anyway, that's you always have a fight that just almost immediately goes to the ground, and it's always a lot of scrabbling, and those are so fun. So it's a lot of weight sharing. It's a lot of people learning how to do the cool, like, rolling over each other, which is hilariously hard to do. Like, you would think it's easy, but it's not, because it's a lot of weight sharing and a lot of core work. And so it's a lot of scrabbling on the ground. It's a lot of hair pulling sometimes. It's a lot of grabbing the closest object, and just swinging it kind of wildly. So it's not, I don't want to say it's hard. It's actually quite easy to do, because you don't have to worry about things like form, but you do have to worry about people legitimately getting hurt, because that's when you work with departments like your props department and stuff, because that's when you get cool things like, I can't remember what it's called, but they now can make a plastic that shatters like glass. So way back in the days it was sugar glass, but that's not great for, like, hot days and stuff. But now props designers have been able to make a type of plastic that shatters like glass, but when they shatter, it shatters in blunt pieces so people don't get hurt.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, you know, or they have, like, breakaway chairs and all other crap, or, you know, you hit them with a table, you know, kind of stuff. But, like, that's what all that is. And it's a lot of rolling around. It's a lot of weight sharing. I always beg and I always get denied groin shots, but I love a good groin shot. I do. I did it in...
They kick ass.
Huh? They do. They are. They're funny. And even girls react to groin shots, because getting kicked in the taint isn't fun. It's not. I've been accidentally kicked in the taint. I have accidentally hit myself in the taint with my own swords. It's not fun. I know. I'm a trained movement professional. I'm a huge klutz. But like, yeah, so that's what it is. It's a lot of what you'd consider dirty fighting, because you have to remember these people aren't actually fighters. So they're going to do whatever they can to win the fight. And all of that is like hair pulling is very easy. The attacker makes a fist on the head of the victim. The victim takes both of their hands and covers the attacker's fist. And then essentially the victim does all the work looking like their hair is getting pulled, and the attacker just follows. No hair is pulled. Yes. So
That's wild.
yeah, so if you're dragging somebody by their hair, the person on the ground has to essentially backwards crab walk without their hands. So it's weight sharing.
But look like they're not doing
Yeah,
it.
it look like they're being dragged. So instead of them planting their feet, they kind of like, it's kind of like a combination of like crab walking and moonwalking at the same time. They have to lift, they have to keep their pelvis off of the floor, and they keep their back up, right? So they're kind of like in a half crunch. That's very hard. You can try it at home, but you're going to hate it. They have to be in a half crunch. They have to essentially just like pin their partner's hand against their head because they're going to try to engage their back muscles to keep themselves somewhat elevated off of the ground. And then they have to push back. They have to push off of the ground with their feet in order to do that. And then with that tension between the hands, the attacker is kind of helping pull without like actually trying to break the hands from each other. It's actually quite fun. It took a while for my actors to get it, but once they got it, they were doing it all the time. Because they're like, oh, this is great. Da, 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 da. It's like wheelbarrow races. I was like, yep, you weirdos.
I was about to just say that. You're just grabbing a different part fakely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much very similar to what it is. It's like wheelbarrow racing, but backwards. Yeah. All sorts of fun stuff.
We got to wrap up this segment so we can move on to a fun new segment, but I just want to say to the listeners out there, although Stephanie was saying accurate things about the final fight of the Raid 2, how a lot of it was unearned flourish, how the winning blow could have been achieved much earlier, just take the knife and cut the guy. And also it didn't really advance the plot much besides, Rama needs to be in the next room and there's a guy who's like, no. And then the guy went away, so he goes to the next room. Despite all that being true, Raid 2 fucking whips ass. And there's so many fights that are good that I don't watch and have this dissonance, and I'm like, how come? So watch that fucking movie if you haven't.
Stephanie, based on the Raid 2, my takeaway is what I'm about to say, and I want to know if you agree. Do movies need more mini bosses? How do you feel about mini bosses?
It depends on the movie.
I think the Raid 2 is like the platonic ideal of a mini boss movie.
Right, because I'm thinking about like the John Wick franchise, and you need mini bosses in the John Wick franchise. Like, come on, like you do. Like, there are certain movies where you need mini bosses, but then like you don't need mini bosses in like, I don't know, like I don't think any of the Avengers movies need mini bosses. Because they establish the bad guy and they establish the good guys, and that's the whole point. So like, if the story calls for it, like we've got like a big bad, and like the big bad has like a really big henchman, and like the henchman or the assistant is also like clearly the brains and they've established themselves, then like sure, you should absolutely have that mini boss because there's a story there. Like, why is that assistant, like why is that number 2 to the boss, like why are they even there? And like you can have that story and you can have that enriched, like you can have that character story enrich the overall plot with that. Like, again, I'm sorry for being on this Legend of Korra trip. I literally just finished the series this morning. Like in the first season, there was like this one guy who had, oh man, I can't remember what they're called, but the cool like arm, I can't remember what the staffs are called, but like those ones where you hold them like they're like police batons, but they're backwards and they
tonfas.
Yeah, tonfas. So this guy had like cool tonfas, right? They were like electrically charged, and he was like the number 2 to like the bad guy, and like Korra had to fight that dude, had to like defeat that dude to get to the bad guy. And like you find out that guy had like devoted his entire life to like this guy's cause, which is why he fought so fucking well. Like that's important. Like that's cool to like, because that shows you how influential that bad guy was, right? Like it showed you like this is why people rallied to his cause, because people truly did believe in him, and like that adds to the story overall. So like mini bosses serve their purpose, but they have to be earned. They have to be there for a reason. You can't just have, a big bad there because, your villain is this simpering little dude who can't like actually like pull his own weight. Like, make good villains.
Well, okay. I think okay. This tracks because in the Raid 2, the main villain is a simpering little idiot who can't fight.
Yeah.
But his faction in the mob is like the freaks. There's like the 2 factions of like the normal mob, and then his faction is like the weirdos. And he has 3 henchmen. One of them is that knife guy who fights with a traditional style very normally and doesn't really have a personality, and has that disappointing fight at the end that, while it has very interesting choreography, just kind of like ends. The other 2 are just the most colorful freaks. There is this girl who fights with hammers on a train, and that fight is incredible because I think she doesn't speak. She only speaks with sign language. And then she has a brother who uses a baseball bat, and he throws a baseball and hits it so hard that it goes into someone's head.
Wait, this guy is Ness?
There.
They have Ness in this game? It's like it's half of Ice Climbers and Ness is in this movie? I'm down. Here we go.
Yes. That's
a perfect
all
button.
they are. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
You're scared of BioShock. That's good. I've always wanted to... Is it because you have to talk to an Irish guy at the beginning?
No, it's because... Okay, so like really quick. Oh my God. If you ask my boyfriend how much of a ninny is Stephanie Nicole Mattos, he would be like, she is scared of her own shadow. I have watched her jump into the air when a piece of lettuce fell on the floor. Like, I am scared of everything. So this one time...
I jump at everything, too. And it's good to know that you can be a professional, like, what do you say, a movement instructor?
I am a trained movement professional. And I am...
And also kind of jumpy. And just generally on edge at all times.
Exceptionally jumpy. Like, when I know jump scares are coming... my anxiety kicks into overdrive, and like it'll still happen and I'll still yelp. And like my boyfriend just like, for those who know Kevin, he has the disappointment of a monk. Like he's very much just like, he breathes out of his nose like real loud, and he just shakes his head really slowly and closes his eyes, and you feel bad for letting Kevin down, you know. And like he does that whole... And that's exactly what he does. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, baby. I'll try to be less of a scaredy cat next time.
I'm just trying to remember what happens at the beginning of BioShock. You're on a plane. You look at a gift.
No, the first BioShock,
crashes.
the very, very first one, when you go down the elevator into Rapture and you're underwater. Oh my God. So like, it's probably also because I'm like super scared of the deep sea, and I also love and also am intimidated by space. But it's the fact that it's a void that is nothing but pressure, and like if anything goes wrong, that whole fucking city can just collapse in on itself. Freaks me out. But on top of that,
like you should be able to end BioShock by equipping the wrench and hitting a window.
The thing that kills me about BioShock that I fucking, even at the time, I was like, this is fucking hilarious, is how many hallways are leaking. Like, I'm sorry.
So many things that really just, the whole time back in my mind, I'm like, this thing absolutely should have just like caved in on itself by now. This could not have leaked and maintained the amount of outside pressure it needs in order to keep the ocean from just crumpling it up like a piece of tinfoil. Like, it just stresses me out. But really what got me was the fact that it's such a dark game. It's like dark, and it's dark on purpose. And like, again, I don't like jump scares. I lose my motherfucking mind at jump scares. I hate them. I hate them so much. And so, you know, you come in that thing and you're only armed with a wrench and you're up to your knees in water. And I'm like, there are so many broken electrical cables here that are sparking. I'm so stressed. And then like this lady with the baby carriage next to you just starts screaming out of nowhere and starts swinging towards your face. And the first time I played this, I was high. I was high as balls.
Oh no.
Balls.
Yeah, the devil will get you. The devil is real, and he lives in BioShock.
And it was dark in my house, and I was like, oh, people say it's a good adventure game. And that lady came at me screaming, and she looked all deformed and stuff, and I had only this pipe wrench, and I was standing in electrified water, and I just started screaming. And I tried really hard to remember that I had a controller in my hand so I didn't drop it, and I was just like, I killed her, and I never played the game again. I couldn't do it.
I was expecting the story to be about like the jump scare, but I am very charmed that like the main fear is just like, this isn't up to code.
Yeah, this is a structural concern.
I'm like, because there was a thing, like I had a sense of urgency, like this thing could collapse any minute. This thing could collapse any minute. And you want me to go get what? This thing could collapse any minute. Why am I even here? Like, the whole time, I was like, I don't want to look for murderers. I'm in the middle of the Atlantic. Like, I was just like very upset the entire time. I was like, how close are we to the Mariana Trench? I swear to God, if I see a hatchet fish, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Pause. I'm going to put that all in. That's all going in. That was very funny.
This is also why I can't do Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh.
Yeah, that shit sucks. Why would anyone
It
play
sucks, but it's also scary. that one, I just watched a supercut of that, and it made me so scared I cried.
Well, that's why it sucks, because
You're like
it is
mainlining
jump
fear.
scares.
You're like, you know how there's normally a sense of urgency and suspense? What if I just got that all out of the way and just jammed the scariest parts in my head?
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that. Mm-mm. Like, I can be scared for a little bit and like get over it. Like, I was able to play Left 4 Dead at internet cafes in the early 2000s, but like, whew, no, I'm a scary baby. I can't do it.
We're the anime sickos, and we're here to say anime is bad in a war crime way.
Stephanie, we can talk about weapons. Weapons kick ass. You have a quarterstaff, or about to get a quarterstaff, I believe. You talked about how there used to be 2 competing quarterstaff schools, and then one of them killed the other.
That was my question. I'm assuming what happened was not budget issues, but in fact a type of elimination tournament.
No.
Yeah, they did a Kengan
It was
match.
budget issues, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's usually not Kengan rules. It's usually just neoliberalism, but that's fine.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, quarterstaff, that's a stick for hitting. That is the coolest thing that you can learn. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I've trained in quarterstaff and I've trained in Joe staff. That is what you use in Aikido. Joe staffs are smaller than quarterstaffs. Quarterstaffs are 6 feet long and they are an inch in diameter. And quarterstaffs were actually a legitimate thing that was used by travelers in the old English time. You can look them up. Quarterstaffs were not always 6 feet long. They were usually they were literally quarterstaffs because they were a quarter of a man's height. And they usually on one end, they had a top and a bottom, and one end was usually tipped with metal. In some decorative way. They were essentially they were legitimately clubs, and they were given to, not clubs, they were legitimately walking sticks. But they also had that tip on the end in the olden days, so people could ward off road bandits and stuff.
This is a threaded cane from Bloodborne.
Essentially, yes. Mm-hmm. And so, essentially, what we use quarterstaff in stage combat for is clearly fights. They are truly unwieldy things. I come in at a cool 5'5", 5'6". So giving me a stick that's about 6 inches taller than me, I'm like, I am practically kayaking the air, but it's fine. Nothing was more fun than having to go all the way up to Evanston. They're just like, we're just gonna do some drills. I'm like, I'm just gonna kayak myself to sleep here. It's not a very fast weapon, but the cool thing about it is that it can break your brain. I think that I should have learned quarterstaff first, because there was this one time in class and my fight master was like, I couldn't get this one move right. I couldn't switch sides. I was struggling to switch sides. I was defending on one side and attacking on the other. And my master just took my hands and very slowly moved me through the movement, and I was like, and it was because both ends are the weapon. I was like, wait, there's no pointy end. He goes, that's right, you did learn swords first. And I was like, what do I do? There's not a pointy end. There's not a top and a bottom. He's like, everything's the top and the bottom. And I was like, no, I need structure. I just freaked out. I was like, that's the cool thing about sticks, though. It's always a stick, no matter which way you swing it. So I don't want to say it's easy. I mean, it's easy because a lot of the thing with quarterstaff and with using sticks in general is that you should be following the momentum of the entire, of the staff itself. Like any weapon, it's always an extension of yourself. You should never treat it as if it's something else. You should always treat it as an extension of your body as it is. But the cool thing about quarterstaff is that, you're not stuck on just using one half of it. You should be using all parts of the stick, which is really, really fun. And fights that do that are awesome. Even if you have a spear, it's still a stick. And the other end can still fuck your shit up. It's still a good time. So I train with the Society of American Fight Directors in Evanston. They work with the Actors Gymnasium, and they give classes in the 8 main styles that the SAFD works with, which is quarterstaff, rapier and dagger, knife, broadsword, short sword, and sword and shield, and unarmed.
I'm hearing job classes from a JRPG.
I'm picking SNS. I'm picking sword and shield.
Sword and shield.
That's what I'm picking.
Okay, so
It's my Monster Hunter choice, and I'm sticking to the basics.
okay.
Yeah, is there any movement to add hunting horn to that repertoire?
Yeah, obviously, when you do sword and shield training, I'm guessing a huge part of it is that they tell you that you can use items in combat without having to sheath it.
Yeah, kind of. But the cool thing about Sword and Shield, it's actually weird. It's weird. It's hard. And I haven't done too much Sword and Shield because you have to remember that you can use your shield as a weapon too. And
So no joke, like this is my biggest complaint in video games. I can't stand it. Like there's not enough games where you have equipment and a sword and shield and you're actually hitting people with the fucking shield. I wish it happened more.
Yes. So I will give you a couple of reasons why I think that they don't do it. One, I can't speak for developers. I don't know what they do. But the thing with the shield is that it's strapped to your inner arm. It's strapped to your arm. It's essentially, so if you lift your arm and if you cock your arm at it, like you're holding a shield, right? It's strapped to your forearm, right? Mm-hmm. And that little bone that runs from your elbow to your wrist is a little bone. So unless you are making sure you are throwing your entire weight and transferring that energy through the shield, you will break your arm and then your shield is useless. Because it has to be attached to your arm, right? So you can take some incoming damage, but you have to really be careful about how and like how you throw that arm out, because it's meant to cover all of your targets. So if you throw it out too far, you open yourself up, you throw yourself off balance, and you're killed. So you have to be careful. Also, a thing that I really wish that we could do, and I wish they do it more often, but it's all the physics about making a shield. I wish you could just Captain America swing your shield a lot more often than people do. I just like the concept of having a circular boomerang all of the time. It doesn't ever work that way, but like, come on, let me frisbee my shield, damn it. Let me frisbee my shield.
If you're gonna have a circular boomerang, you gotta have the flying guillotine shock run,
right? Exactly. Like
that's much cooler.
Absolutely. So that's a big thing. You have to remember that like this is supposed to. It's not just meant to protect. You have to also make sure that like if you not meant to just protect your body, but like if you try to use it as a weapon too much, it could wind up not helping you as much as it could if you just use it for its normal use. But I do love Sword and Shield because like it is great to have like another thing like with you at the same time. So it's really cool, and I think with a lot of Sword and Shield they teach you a lot of Roman fighting, which is pretty fun. Because
Wait, like gladiator stuff?
Yeah, but you don't always use but you use bucklers. You don't use those big shields that they use. Like centurions had with those huge walls of like shields. But you learn a lot of that kind of stuff, yeah.
Just real quick, talking about your arm breaking with a shield, that calls to mind one of the best scenes in Lord of the Rings where Eowyn is fighting the fucking big scary guy, and he has his huge flail that's like comically huge and heavy, and he swings it over his head and whams it right down on her shield, and her arm just like gets fucked, and she just like falls down, and that arm's not moving anymore, and like that hit like is one of the most like viscerally like ooh in the whole fucking trilogy. I love that.
Yeah,
shit.
and like that can absolutely happen, and that's why a lot of shields are rounded, right? So they can absorb that energy and like transfer it around, so it's not all on one focus point. That's why if you notice, if you're playing like, oh my god, for those who still play it, because I don't really play anymore, Genshin Impact, those big shields that those big boys have, they're just straight up and down wooden planks, right? But like they can just break into pieces, not just because it's the game, but like also because like they're just straight up pieces. But most shields, even if they are straight up and down, like if you think about, for those who play Final Fantasy 14 and have a gladiator or a paladin, even if they are the big tall shields, they're rounded.
Yeah.
And it's so they can disseminate that energy that comes in, because it's meant for you to put it up as a holy shit, that guy's got a fucking mace. You know, like that's the point. And so that energy will radiate out from the point of impact, and your arm will feel like, you just did a shake weight for 3,000 years for a minute. And it's like your whole body will vibrate down one side of yourself. But if they make it that the point of impact is as close to the center as possible, it will radiate out over that shield, and it'll help mitigate that damage. Not actually kill your tank in a tank buster. Wow. I play a lot of MMOs. So yeah.
You are an anime sicko. You did mention
I am an anime sicko.
Okay. I got a question. The answer is going to be no. I just know that in advance, but I have to ask it. is this a quarterstaff move that you could do? You're running, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You take a little jump and you plant your quarterstaff, and you do like a pole vault.
Yeah.
You're in the air. Mm-hmm. You do a front flip holding your staff over your head, thereby getting a lot of momentum on it. And as you come down, you smash the staff on a guy, and then the guy died.
I mean, me personally, no, because I don't have that much. I am not like, I can't do all those flips. I can't do it. But theoretically, yes. But you'd need a whole bunch of space between you and that guy in order for you to get it done. Because as long as you're just using your quarterstaff as like a cantilever, you have to really make sure that you can get the air. That's on you having the hops to get high enough to do all of the cool stuff in the air to build up that momentum so you have gravity on your side to come down. So possibly, but you have to have like mad hops to have that happen. And also that person has to like be dumb and not get out of the way. like real dumb and not get out of the way.
So the pole vault move is not part of certification.
You don't have the pole vault move in order to get certified. No.
You have to do it at certain places, like that DMV doesn't make you parallel park. Like you don't have to do the pole vault jump at this place.
No, for the SAFD SPT skills proficiency test, you do not have to do any sort of cool moves. Essentially, the skills proficiency test is there to make sure that you understand how to use your weapon, that you act the fight well, that your fight tells a story, and that them as an audience member, the proctor of your fight, feels as though there was a suitable amount of like threat created and maintained during it. Because at the end of the day, like while the cool stuff is cool, the cool stuff requires a lot of work, and the cool stuff also requires a lot of training. And you have to make sure, especially when you're a fight director, you have to make sure that anybody can do the work that you give them. You don't need somebody who actually is like a nationally ranked like competitive wuxia fighter in order to like do staff work. I've worked with people who have come to me and been like, I know that you don't put your thumb in your fist when you make a punch. Like I've got people who've done that, and I've got people who've been like, I have a black belt in karate, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you know, you have to be able as a fight director to be able to work with all levels of combat. So skills proficiency tests are just the basics, because you have to be able to teach it. Like Einstein says, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't actually understand it well enough. And you're given actually a lot of the choreography for skills proficiency tests, and then like the ending, you actually, that's when you get to improvise. Okay. So yeah, and so for specifically for my quarterstaff skills proficiency test, I did not use my 6-foot quarterstaff. I used a Joe staff, which is about 5 feet, 4.5, 5 feet. Which is what they use in Aikido. And yo, that shit is wild. Like my fight master does Aikido. And like the crazy thing about Aikido, and I'm going to learn it because it's awesome, is that you have to utilize, like you have to exert the least amount of energy as possible. Like Spike Spiegel does Aikido. And like you exert the least amount of energy as possible. And like everything is about torque when you have a weapon in Aikido. Like my fight master used me like to teach my partner something when we were like learning our fight, and he didn't disarm me the third time when he did this very simple move, but I actually managed to block it the way I should, and my right arm tingled for 3 hours. I thought that he had given me nerve damage. He did not. I am fine. But I was like, this is all the energy you need to exert? He goes, yeah. I was like, all you did was step to the right and you just brought your stick into yourself. He goes, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I was like,
this is straight manga. This is Kengan Ashura shit. Like he used like magic.
Yeah, that's literally what Aikido is. It's like, it feels like it's magic. They have this whole like joke about death. And then essentially the quick thing about death is like death comes to the door of like 3 fight masters, right? Death comes to the door of the karate master. The karate master comes out kicking. Wah! Death takes him anyway. The death comes to the door of the taekwondo master. The taekwondo master comes out swinging. Wah! Taekwondo master is beaten by death. The death comes to the door of the aikido master. And the aikido master is not there. That's the whole point of Aikido. Not be where your opponent thinks you're going to be.
I was
That is...
I was about to be a smartass and be like, I'm not opening the fucking door.
No.
And that's what it was.
The Aikido master was not there. Like, Death opened the door, and the Aikido master was not at the door. And I was like, huh. Yeah.
Aikido is about when death is coming, you hit the bricks.
This is... Okay. If I'm reading Kengan Omega, the Kengan Ashura sequel series, and an Aikido guy shows up, and, like... If I saw, like, someone on the sidelines being like, what's Aikido? And someone's like, let me tell you. Let me exposit at you. And, like, I would not be shocked to see, like, an illustrated telling of that little story. Yeah. And, like, the person hearing it being like, whoa! And then we see a panel of, like, a guy getting owned, and everyone gasps, goes like, he didn't move! And then someone exposits some more about Aikido. That's really the king of, the king... feature of manga is that, like, someone just expositing about what just happened. You can just do that for as long as it takes because it's not in real time.
Yeah, here are some karate facts.
Yeah, like, that's like, I mean, when I learned that, like, my mind was, like, blown up, and I was like, oh, so I have to learn this, because, like, especially with Aikido, a lot of Aikido, even when you have a weapon, is redirecting your opponent's momentum, redirecting their energy back at their self. Which is also why it's really hard, because it's a defense and an attack at the same time, and it's about not flipping out. It's about, like, not losing your own shit. So you have to stay calm, and it's really hard. And, like, that's actually the skills proficiency test where I, like, blue screened in the middle of the fight, and my partner helped me there. Essentially, she was going for a low thrust. And I was supposed to block it with a downward parry, and I was supposed to also grab her staff at the same time. And, like, thankfully, because I had done it for, like, 4 weeks or 5 weeks at that point, my body just automatically did it. But I remember my brain going, what's next? And then, like, and then my crotch was like, vagina! And I was like, oh, vagina! like, it was like, oh, my vagina! And, like... It made sense in the moment that, like, I had, like, a whole, like, a sound of, like, force, you know, like, grabbing her stick, but it was actually also, like, a shriek, because I was like, oh, is my clit intact? Yes, my clit is intact. Okay, we're good. And I looked at my partner, and my partner was like, you good? Like, that's what her eyes said, and I was like, I'm good. And, like, we go back into, like, she yanks her stick away, and we go into our dialogue, and we're blah, and, like, I actually won that fight with a disarm. I didn't actually kill her. I won that fight with a disarm. But it's this moment where I was just like, this is where my body was like, okay, we're going to go from overhead parry to low parry to grab. And, like, by time my brain had caught up, we were already there. And I was screaming 5 seconds after it happened. Like, it was like, like, why did I do this? Why is this my job? Why is this my job? Why couldn't I have just gone to rugby like a real person? You know.
I'll say it sounds hard.
It is hard. It's really hard.
Your shit can get mashed into potatoes.
No one hits me at work.
Yeah. I have kneecapped myself with my own sword. Yeah.
Oof.
It was fine. I dropped into on guard and my knee was in the wrong spot. And I just kneecapped myself with the end of my own sword. It's fine. It's fine. I'm a trained movement professional, okay?
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
So, hell yeah, folks. That kicked ass. Folks, this has been a great episode of Anime Sickos. For me personally, an excellent Guesto experience because I just get to sit with, like, my jaw dropped listening to fighting facts for an hour.
I wrote down the quarterstaff stuff. Stephanie said, like, it's gonna come up.
Maybe it will. That's the thing. If ever it happens, we're already, like, we already know that most people don't know about fighting. The fact that we know that we don't know about fighting is, like, the ultimate wisdom, if you think about it.
Yeah.
That's like mind without mind. That could be in Kengan Omega. Someone could have that and just, like, this person has never learned fighting.
Yeah, this is the ultimate novice. It's the ultimate novice, yeah. His brain is completely smooth. He never remembers anything. That would be his thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's us now, dude. It's because this is a great episode. And who do we have to thank? Obviously, we have to thank Stephanie Mattos for coming on the show and being great. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like, the first moment that I heard that you did fighting, I was like, and the countdown begins to Guesto mode appearance. The clock has already started. It paid off, folks. I was right. I did it.
Slam dunk.
So, Stephanie, if people have listened to that and have made the correct judgment that you are great and they want to know more about you and what you do, where can they go to find out such things?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter. The handle is the same. That's a smattering, one big word. And I also have a website. It's stephaniemattos.com. Stephanie is spelled with a PH. Sorry for those Stephanies with an F out there. Like, truly deeply sorry for your name. So Stephanie Mattos, SEPHANIE, Mattos, MATTOS.com. I'll update it, I promise.
If we ever do a live action Sickos project, unlikely. But if we do, there's definitely going to be fighting involved. And you're going to be on top of our list for hiring.
I got you. I actually have friends who audition for Power Rangers reboots. They are very, very good at what they do. Yeah! I got a couple of friends who like auditioned to be Power Rangers. They didn't get it, but they totally auditioned. But they got really cool. They got really cool fights too.
Wait, do they do that? I thought they just reused the Japanese fights.
I don't know if they do, but I guess, I'm not sure. Somebody who cares about Power Rangers, like, a bunch would know more than I would, but they have, like, I mean, like, look, I've aged out of Power Rangers. I mean, I think Power Rangers fights are dope, but, like, I'm also, like, 32. I just can't watch it anymore.
We have a guest who is a huge Power Ranger sicko, and they pitched it to us, and I forgot their points.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
But there's
I was
there's new seasons, and so they do have to audition for like they audition for like the core Power Rangers, and then of course like, you know, like amusement parks and stuff that have like, you know, like fighting and all that kind of stuff. But like there was like a call like a couple of years ago for like new Power Rangers, and like two of my friends like auditioned, and they had to send in like a tape of them like fighting, and it was a very cool because like they both have one of them knows, I think they both are kung fu fighters. They both do kung fu, but they do different styles, and it was pretty dope. They did that, which is a really good time.
That's the kind of shit you can expect to hear when you're talking about fighting. And that to me is great. But yeah, that's been Anime Sickos. That's been the show. Hope you enjoyed it. How could you not? Maybe if you're lame. Ugh. But why would you be listening? All of our listeners are cool. So that was a foolish thing to even say. Anyway, I'm going to keep fucking rambling until I wrap it up. So I'm going to do that now. I have been Tom, an anime sicko.
I'm Joe, an anime sicko.
Hi, and I'm Stephanie, an anime sicko.
Thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos, or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.